Good evening and welcome back to Mystic Matters. We are the Greater Mystic Chamber of Commerce. Good evening, Tricia Walsh.
Good evening, Suzette.
Nice to see you again. Summer is gearing up for the Chamber and for all of our downtown businesses, right?
And not just downtown, our attractions immediately out of downtown, and we have Summer in the City going on in the city of Groton, which is a huge thing, summer long, tons of events. Celebrating a big anniversary. Don't ask me the number, I cannot remember off the top of my head. But there is just a lot to see and do this year in the Greater Mystic area. So definitely check out our website for full list of activities that are going on.
Very good. Well, this evening I am proud to introduce, I'm actually going to let him introduce himself, because you will notice and probably remember that way back when, Michael O'Farrell, welcome again to Mystic Matters.
Thank you.
And you sat in many, many, many times.
Yes, the chair, it still feels like my chair.
Doesn't it? And it was really crazy when Tricia Cunningham had, and a lot of our presidents of the Greater Mystic Chamber of Commerce have other jobs to do, and we're always looking for somebody to come in and fill in, and certainly you were on the top of the list. We knew we could count on you to fill in.
It's a long time ago.
That was a very long time ago, but you were so much a part of Mystic and part of the Mystic Seaport for a very long time, and a part of the Greater Mystic Chamber of Commerce, so we're so happy that you're back again.
I still am, right?
Yes,
I haven't
you
gone
are.
anywhere. Well, a little bit.
Well,
you went over the bridge, Tricia. You know how that
long
is.
Gone.
Long gone over the bridge. But tell us, what are you doing now?
Well, I'm the Director of Public Relations at Lawrence Memorial Hospital.
Yes,
it's been
you are.
almost 4 years, just about.
4 years?
4 years.
wow.
In October, it'll be 4 years. Yeah.
We did a lot of Avanti's luncheons 4 years ago.
We did a lot of Avanti's luncheons. We did a lot of Voodoo Grill
yes,
lunches.
Yes, we did, yes.
My gosh, we did trolley rides
we
way
did trolley
back
rides
in the day.
with Tricia's mom.
That's right, that's right.
And can I just tell you that story? Okay, so you were just basically new.
Yeah, it just started.
It just
like
started.
We're going to go on the bus with these ladies, and I have no idea what we're talking about.
And it was crazy. We get on the bus, and I remember Tricia on the trolley, and Tricia saying, well, just kind of we've got some people here, and tell us a little bit of history of our community in the Mystic Seaport, and you were like, okay,
yeah,
no problem, but my third day.
Right.
So anyways, it was great.
No, I still feel a part of Mystic. It's always going to be a part of me. I mean, gosh, I grew up there, worked there, and still having the connection with L&M. So, you talk about all the great things in the summer. Don't forget, if you get sick, right? If you get sick, we're here to help.
We have the best care.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Well, it's funny. People, now that the sort of L&M system has evolved and grown, but, Pequot, the emergency room at Pequot is a summer haven for some people that are on kind of this side of town. And now that Westerly is in the fold,
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. That was ongoing for a few years.
The Westerly acquisition or talks about it actually go back to the early 90s. At one point, they were very close to having some sort of an agreement back then, and that fell apart. And then, so we go back to what would be 2011, I believe. The discussions come up again. What kind of partnership could we work on? Because healthcare is changing every day, and how are we going to be able to survive this landscape? And Westerly's having some difficulties. So what could happen there? So we re-engaged the talks, and then along the process, they have to file for receivership because things had just gotten too challenging for them to recover at that point. So we stayed, close
on
to
course.
Yeah, we stayed close to the situation. It changed, obviously, in terms of what the agreement would become, and we decided to pursue the acquisition. And that was a long, drawn-out legal process because the Rhode Island regulatory side is a challenge to get through. But we were named the sort of leading bidder there, and everybody would sort of be compared to us.
But not unusual for acquisitions.
No, not.
See, and that's I think, when I look back and some of the press and some of the talk about town, this is sort of normal course of business in acquisitions.
Right. But the sensitivity around healthcare is a lot different than the sensitivity around tourism.
Yes.
Right? And so when you bring up the notion of healthcare, people, they feel very strongly about it, as they should, and particularly when you're talking about a community hospital. Look, I was born at Wesley Hospital, so in some instance, that's my hospital.
Was it a one-room house back then?
It wasn't that long ago, Suzette. It was a lot shorter than when you were born.
Okay,
Let's just go there, right? So, but the fact is, people are connected to their community hospital. So the folks in Westerly and Pawcatuck and Mystic, because there's a crossover there in terms of, do you go to Westerly or do you go to New London? People felt very strongly about making sure that they could still drive up Wells Street and have a hospital. Mm-hmm. And we felt very strongly that you should be able to drive up Wells Street and have a hospital. So after a lengthy, not necessarily negotiation, but a lengthy process, last June, so June 1st of 2013, Wesley Hospital became part of the L&M healthcare system. And we had a very strong set of guidelines of what we had to abide by when we made our offer, that it would continue to be a community hospital for at least 5 years. We wouldn't touch this, we wouldn't touch that, we'd guarantee this, we'd guarantee that. So we're working under a signed agreement for basically the next 5 years in terms of how much capital investment do we put in, what does the clinical staff look like, what the services will look like, what our ability is to either add a service, and how would we go about that process. So this is not a willy-nilly operation by any means. Everything is spelled out in this document in terms of how we're going to move forward. But more importantly is that the hospital is there. Yes, some things are different. There's no longer a birthing center there, but that's not necessarily a decision that was made in haste. That was looking at everything from population to, quite frankly, the viability of it to stay there. And the fact that L&M could still provide the same thing, 20 minutes away, where we happen to have a NICU, right? So it's not as if there are challenges here. But the first year has been a lot more successful, quite frankly, than we thought it would be. We've achieved some very strong numbers in the first year of operation that are nearly looking at about a 3% operating margin, which we didn't expect so quickly. And some of that is because of the consolidation of, quite frankly, the leadership team is shared between the two hospitals, and some of the better buying power that we have now for supplies and things like that. But we've seen volumes start to come back, because during this time of instability, the folks in Westerly and Pawcatuck, some stayed away, quite frankly. They weren't sure what was going to happen, so they made other choices for their health care. But now the emergency department volume is back up. The inpatient, it's not declining. It's not quite where we want it to be yet. But it's okay. But that's another trend nationwide. Inpatient numbers are down everywhere. We're facing the same thing in New London. But some of the key outpatient numbers are up. We've been able to bring new doctors into the community, which has been a huge part of that. And in terms of the recruiting the docs, they want to see stability before they're going to commit, right? So,
well, they're committing their practice, but they're also committing their homes, their family,
their life, and their family there. And we've been able to bring in primary care and OB and general surgery and an orthopedic surgeon, and we hope to do more of that. So, in the first year, it's been a lot better than we expected, or that we had hoped, and see good signs going forward. And more importantly, the hospital is there. You can go up Wells Street and know that you can get taken care of. Right. And that is a big deal. And when you look at the notion of a community hospital, and just the group that was involved, the Wesley Area Residents Committee, these folks that said, hey, we're going to be involved in this, kind of a watchdog a little bit, to help out.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it at all.
And I think L&M embraced that.
How could you not? I mean, that's the whole notion of what we're there for and what they're there for. And now some of those folks have transitioned onto the board, so they've still kept that, that level of engagement. And that was another aspect, that we've reconstituted a board of local leaders, and not only for the Wesley Hospital Board, but also for the L&M Healthcare Board, sort of the parent organization. Right. So there are Westerly residents on the the hospital board, and there are Wesley residents and doctors on the L&M Healthcare Board. So there is a strong voice in that community, not just for that hospital, but for our overall system.
Well, one of the things that from the chamber end, as this was going on, it was, if you didn't know anything about healthcare or the hospital system or everything that was happening, I know that you, L&M and Westerly, worked really well with the Chambers of Commerce, ourselves and the Greater Westerly Pawcatuck Chamber, to provide our members with the most up-to-date information
Right.
to communicate
That was key.
what certain things meant and why they had to happen that way. Because I think that if you had just read the newspapers at the time, you may have been a little misinformed or been thinking
true,
it was
Tricia,
different than it was.
Right.
And I know that you guys worked really hard to make sure that people had all the facts out there
Right.
and that they understood what the process was and what your challenges were and that you were addressing them.
I mean, this was the volume of paper that were involved in a transaction like this is insane. But the notion was people were very concerned, and so how could we address it? What you read in the paper wasn't always the most accurate, but it's not to say it was wrong. It just wasn't the complete information because there is a process, and all along people were making assumptions that L&M was making decisions. We weren't. It was, you know, the hospital was being run by the special master during that point. Was he taking input from us in certain cases? Sure, but in other cases, you know, he was running it. And we were sort of just waiting out this process. And I think that was a hard thing for some people to understand, is what our role was and when we were taking over per se, and when we had more involvement than others. So it was challenging, and but through, you know, connecting with your members and with the members in the Greater Westerly Pawcatuck Chamber, it was the same thing. It was people were hungry for information, and how could we get it to them? Our president, Bruce Cummings, has spoken to, you know, whether it's a chamber group or a Lions group or an Elks group or a Moose group or in every group possible out there, trying to say this is what's going on. Westerly Town Council, same thing, keeping those that were, you know, most engaged and interested in is as informed as we could.
Right. Yeah, I think Bruce Cummings and the key people from West L&M, not only the chambers but some of the community leaders. Right. He was very, very good at, you know, speaking to them. So I think that was fabulous. And I have to say, being having a business right in between, Tricia, I hear very positive things. You know, here a year later, in between, you know, for Westerly and New London, I think it's been, from what I understand, a very good marriage.
It seems to be so far. And are there going to be growing pains? Of course, there's going to be growing pains and everything. The fact when you look at the environment that we're dealing with, where it's changing.
Healthcare is not easy.
Changing every day, and we're doing the best we can to make sure that when you're here, you're going to get from point A to point B. And when you land, it's going to be comfortable, and it's going to be, you know, something that you understand more. And the fact is that, you know, the shortage of primary care providers and the volumes of people going to the emergency department and how that affects things, and getting people to have a doctor, and getting people, quite frankly, to have ownership in their own health and their own care, and that, you know what, you should be working to not go to the doctor. Right, except for your regular things, you should be trying to live a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, it's not someplace you want to be.
But when you need it, you need to be invested in it, and you need to be invested in your own care, and finding the best, you know, provider for you, and somebody that can help guide you through. I mean, it's
well. Speaking of growing pains, Michael, I think. What did you tell us about? The Cancer Center and the other facility that's open now too?
Sure. Well, you know, Southeastern Connecticut has the horrible distinction of having the highest rates of cancer in the state.
Yes.
And, you know, that's not a secret, and it's not a secret that, you know, we are not the only hospital that is invested in cancer care. However, we are the only hospital that is invested with Dana-Farber, arguably the leader in cancer care. And last October, so October of 2013, we were able to open up our new cancer center in Waterford, just off the highway, easy access, that partners with Dana-Farber. We are the first hospital in Connecticut to partner with them. And what it does is it brings people closer to the leading elements of care. It brings, you know, clinics, second opinion clinics here. It brings a number of different studies and different avenues of research from Boston to Waterford. And that the docs in Waterford are also spending one day a month in Boston, learning from their colleagues up there. And so folks don't have to get on a train anymore in Mystic and go to Boston or go to New Haven or go to New York or go to wherever. They can just drive to Waterford.
Right,
and,
right.
and have it all
Right.
taken care of right there.
Right. So on a personal note, so I've never talked about this. I waited for Michael O'Farrell to come on board and talking. I mean, obviously the two of them are very dear to my heart. Tricia, I'm very close to, and Michael. So on March 5th, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and of course, like a very good patient and somebody who really does a lot of research, I did do what I was supposed to do and check out all the major hospitals,
Right.
which is Sloan Kettering, Smilow, and Dana-Farber, and then circle back. Why did I do that? Is because that's what you're supposed
That's what
to
you're
do.
supposed to do. Invest
And
in
Michael
your care.
and anybody at the hospital will tell you, and even your doctors will say, get a second opinion or get 3 or 4 opinions. But I was able to, because of my relationship with L&M and some of the key doctors and the key administrators there, able to circle back to Dana-Farber and the partnership with L&M Hospital. And I want to tell you that Rick Hellman, Dr. Rick Hellman and Vanessa Johnson, the top in their field. And I am personally going to tell you that I had and have a continuing, because breast cancer obviously is a continuing process, the best care ever. And I'm going to mention that. I waited for an opportunity because it is quite it is out there, but it is quite a private thing too. But since Michael is here and we're talking about healthcare, and I think Michael is right, you don't want to go to the hospital, but if you do, find the best care. And I think that in our backyard here, we do not have to travel far anymore. One of my decisions to come back to L&M, the cancer hospital, is because if my friends and family needed to step up and drive me,
Right.
or have to go to a facility out of town, that would be a hardship, especially owning my own business
Right.
and having Chuck, of course, the other owner. So here we are, Dana-Farber, L&M Cancer Hospital
Right
in
here.
Waterford, Connecticut, right here. But let me just circle back with some of the team back to the surgery. So hence we have the oncology group. Now hence let's go back further to the facility itself. Probably one of the best care facilities at
Incredible.
L&M Hospital
Right.
I ever had.
I mean,
So
you walk
thank
in.
you L&M, and thank you Michael O'Farrell for, and thank you Tricia Walter. She has been just a great support for me as well. So there you have it in a nutshell.
I mean, the fact is, cancer touches everybody.
Right.
Whether it's directly, indirectly,
Right.
it touches everybody. So
Right.
maybe you aren't a patient, but you are supporting a patient. And to be
Absolutely.
able to stay local is obviously important. To be able to stay connected to something like Dana-Farber is obviously important. To be in a facility where it's not just the doctor, there's a social worker, there's a financial counselor, there's a nutritionist.
Absolutely.
There's a patient
Yes.
navigator to help you get through all of these things. That's what we bring to the table now. And yes, we've had a cancer center before at the main hospital, but it was in a tiny little area, and now we've got an amazing facility with the
And ironically, Tricia, here it is 2013. I went to the opening, looked at the facility, went through with Graham around the, did the whole thing. I said, wow, this is nice. Hope I never have to go here.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And here you are. Here it is, 2014. So very happy to have that in our backyard.
It's the fact is, it's not, cancer's not going away.
No.
And at least not anytime
The
soon.
hard part is that we have so much of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The numbers
area.
in this area are through the roof, and nobody knows why, and it is what it is. But and we're not the only one. We have our partnership. We feel really strong about it. We should feel strongly about it, and they worked with us. Dana-Farber doesn't do this all over the place,
No.
right? You talk about an extensive process. The process to get connected with them, to have the right agreements with them, to make sure that all of their safety protocols and everything is being brought down here. They just don't decide, oh, we want to be in New London. It was rigorous for us to get to that point, and we're incredibly proud of it. And people around that need to have that type of treatment should feel comfortable.
And grateful.
And grateful.
We're very grateful.
Exactly right. So, and that's just, we talk about, okay, so we've acquired Wesley, we've opened the cancer center. The other thing, if you've been down, if you're on your way to Captain Scott's for lunch,
You know what? I didn't want Tricia. I didn't want to admit to that.
There's a big
going on my way to Captain Scott.
There's a big new facility
Yes,
on
there is.
Howard Street, which is our new medical office building, which opened recently as well. And what's happened there is we've taken a number of our doctors out of a variety of buildings in New London and put them in one place. You know, to make it
sense,
to make it easy, right? To make it easy. So if you're coming in for one appointment, primary care, and you need this specialty, it's all right there. So the scheduling folks can get you connected, and then you can come back and you need to use the lab for, to have blood drawn. The lab is right there. You need walk-in care, it's right there. So, again, this is all the sort of evolution of how healthcare is changing and giving patients a medical home, if you will, and an established place where they can go. And this new medical office building is doing just that. This was a vacant building that was on Howard Street that we invested a few $1 million in to turn it into, another top facility that provides a variety of services to people all in one place. So you don't have to go from this building to that building to this building to that building. It's right there. And it's just the way that the model is changing, and
well, not only for L&M, I think the model is changing for
everywhere.
All healthcare.
That's one of the things that sometimes we struggle with in terms of whether or not we're getting that message across. Is that a lot of these things that are affecting L&M are affecting hospitals everywhere. That this is just the way it's going. That it is, people are going to the hospital less, so they're going to more outpatient facilities, and to have that in the community where people can have good access to it is hugely important. So we're not reinventing the wheel here by any means.
No.
We're adapting to an environment and making sure that both of you, when you need the care, can get what you need.
Well, and I think that you're also showing that you care about the community, and that you're actively engaged, involved, out there trying to communicate, spread the word about everything that you're doing. Shows that you're not just this facility that's medical and cold. These are actual people that genuinely care about the community they live in and the people that they're serving.
There's been a lot of talk about that recently in terms of nonprofits and what their role is, and whether or not we should be paying taxes or what we give back to the community. The fact is the hospital gives millions back every year through a variety of different ways. The fact is if you need
just
care...
your support, with all the chambers. And
obviously supporting, other nonprofit organizations and their role in making them successful. But if you come to the hospital without insurance, you're getting cared for. You walk through that door, you're getting cared for, whether you can pay for it or not. And, that doesn't happen everywhere. Right. But it happens here, and that is a large number that we're impacted by. The training and education of future providers that, when folks come to our place for clinical rounds or for other educational elements, it's more than $1 million a year that we invest just in that to make sure that the next, generation of healthcare providers is going to be, well educated and up to date on all of these things. But there are, other number of community programs that happen, whether it's education or nutritional elements for teens and that sort of thing that we do that not everybody sees and that not everybody understands. So when you take that and you take the support of other organizations and you take the uncompensated care that we provide, it's significant to the tune of, multiple millions of dollars every year, larger than what a tax bill would be.
Well, interesting you say that when somebody doesn't have insurance and they come in and you're not turned away, well, somebody is paying for that.
Somebody is paying for it. Exactly right.
And it's got to come from someplace. And I think that L&M has really done a great job to say, hey, listen, we are a community hospital, but we also need to sustain our community involvement and, like you say, training and operating. Those are the behind the scenes, just like in any organization, that are really, really, it's a tough nut to handle sometimes, and I think L&M does a great job.
And the equipment. So when you come in for a test,
which can't be outdated,
that you're being tested on the latest and greatest technology, and these are not $20 machines that we're talking about. So there's that aspect of it, because people say, well, where does any money that we turn over in a positive direction goes right back into the equipment and the facility.
Of course,
to
you
make
have to
sure
invest.
that it constantly stays where it should. And you know, the other aspect of folks that without insurance is that, you know, we have financial counselors. So if you are eligible, we'll try to figure out a way to make it work. So with all of the things that have been going on lately, we've been signing people up and we've been trying to get people into the right plan and or when they come in to try to figure out, okay, what can we help you with, what can't we help you with? You need this type of medication, we can provide that free for you for the first month or something like that. So there's a lot of things that happen
so like I said, behind the scenes
that people
Michael,
don't realize that goes on. I mean, look, we've been around for 102 years now. We're not going
We celebrated that 100.
We celebrated that with 2,000 people. We're not going anywhere. It's going to be a little bit different, but we are working hard to make sure that we are always accessible to people when we need
Michael,
to be.
it's been great. You know what?
We're done?
We're wait a minute. When Tricia said Michael O'Farrell's on, I said, and to be honest with you, I said, score. Won't have to talk that much. But Michael, once again, very nice to see you, and I'm sure I'll see you again. I think in a couple of weeks I'll be seeing you at some event, and we're glad to have you on the show. And maybe you pinch hit.
Keep the seat warm.
I'm
in anytime.
Or we could start a Lawrence and Memorial Matters.
Yeah,
right. Why not?
Spin-off of Mystic Matters.
But Michael, do come back again because I think we didn't get enough
message
out. We have enough information, and thank you for being here.
Anytime.
Okay, and I'll see you soon. Tricia Walsh, it's a wrap. Good evening.
Good evening.
We're Mystic Matters. Good evening.